Hello, good afternoon, welcome back to my channel. My name is Louise and this is Louise's Lifestyle. Thank you for joining me. So this afternoon I've been a little bit busy trying to repot, separate seedlings out and transplant them into their own individual pots. So what have I got here? Starting off with these are green chilies. These are a variety called Rocket, and I took the seeds from a ripe chili that I bought from a shop, and it was labelled Rocket chilies from India. So I let the seeds dry and then planted them. I have quite a lot in here. They're looking a bit sort of windswept. Is because I've been digging them out using a teaspoon, lifting them out, and I've started to do it only to the ones that have got their second set of leaves. So these are the seed leaves here, and this leaf is the true leaf. So once they've reached the stage where they've got a true leaf, one or two, that's the time you should be able to prick them out. And I use this teaspoon method, sort of get under the soil, lift them out, and then get the individual seedling. Try not to handle it too much, and if it's got a decent root, now that's too young to plant out. As you can see, it's only got, it might in a pinch, you know, it's starting to get its second leaf there. So that's what I'm doing with the chilies. So I've done quite a few. I need to do a few more. And I'm only keeping 6 plants for myself. I like green chilies because they're very versatile. These Rocket chilies have got a decent heat. They're not blow your head off heat like Nagas, but these type of chilies you can use in, well, I use in everything from omelettes to salads to my curries, stir fries, you name it. Chilies are always, these particular chilies, green chilies, are used quite a lot. So 6 plants for me should be more than enough to keep me going, my family going this year, if they all reach maturity and produce well. They can be frozen as well. You can freeze chilies, you can dry them, so they're good for storing as well if you've got a glut of chilies. Now over here I've got these aubergines, and these aubergines are the Bangladesh variety. I have done a video on aubergines. I'll just put these to one side. They're not aubergines. Go over this side here. So these are the aubergines, and when they first start out, they have very similar leaves, seed leaves, very similar to the chili. But once they get their true leaves, I'll just lift this one up. You can see they're rounded, much more rounded, and that's how you identify, you know, if you haven't labelled your seeds, you can tell the difference between a chili and an aubergine. They're much fatter and rounder and sort of a floppier appearance. They're not sort of as upright, tend to be a bit floppy looking. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I've got six here. I've got a little tiny one there that I've not separated out. I've kept that in with this one. So, and I've got another variety, Giotto. I've only got one of that one, so that's more than enough for me. Aubergines don't store well, so you know, as long as I can get through this year and get a decent crop of aubergines, I'll be happy with 6 plants. That should be more than enough for me. Right, so I'll put the chilies and the aubergines to one side. Oh, I've got some more, a different variety of chili here. These are paper lantern. So I had a paper lantern plant last year and harvested the chilies off it. I didn't get great germination from them, unfortunately. Some popped up and then they died. They wilted very quickly, and I've only got these 3. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and what happened to them, they got attacked by aphids. They were stripped, basically. This one's, as you can see, it had more leaves down the stem, and this is what it's ended up like, but hopefully it'll recover now. So they're the habanero type. They're like a super hot, not as hot as a Naga chili, but a decent heat, you know, if you like very, very hot chilies, that's a good one to grow. But they are slow growers. They're not as fast as the green chilies. Right, moving on. Next is the tomatoes. So I recently did a video on tomato sowing, and you may have heard that there is a shortage in the shop of a lot of things at the moment, tomatoes being one of them. So I've already planted these, are a plum variety, and I did the video on a Delcia Moroccan variety, which I've dried the chilies out, and I've just planted those up today. I think the pot's somewhere around here. There it is. So those Delcia tomatoes are in there. It's a little bit wet. I've just watered them in. So these need to be separated out and put into their individual pots. So hopefully I have lots of tomatoes to pick earlier on, but I don't have to wait until the end of the year. You know, the earlier they plant them, keep them indoors, and you can put them outside late May, June, and then hopefully your tomatoes will crop earlier than other people's. And another thing about tomatoes, they do store well. You can dry them, you can freeze them. So if you have a glut of tomatoes, they do store well. Not in the fridge though. Don't store them in the fridge. They tend to go off very quickly in the fridge. But you can pickle them, brine them, put them in the freezer, or dry them out and have dried tomatoes. Right, so behind here we've got the bottle gourds, and I planted a few. Some have already been potted up into individual pots, and what I'm using, I'll just show you here with this one. I've planted this into a pot noodle container. You could use yogurt containers. Don't throw out your yogurt pots or pot noodle pots or anything of a similar size, because they make great pots, for your plants. And I sort of wash these out, put a little bit of bleach in, give them a good clean, and I'm just using this cutting compost from B&Q, and I will add a little bit of this. This is called ericaceous. They don't necessarily need to have ericaceous, but I have this anyway. Contains root growth mycorrhizal fungi, and it's got a little bit of I think it smells a little bit like a poultry manure, so I'm not sure if that's what's added in that's giving it the smell, but it's only a minimum smell. It's not really strong, and I'm adding that into these little seedling pots. I've added a sprinkle into each of them. So I've just lifted that one out, and I've got these hyacinth beans as well. I've just potted these on, and I'll show you what they look like before I repotted them. You can see this is the roots, very, very strong, healthy looking roots there. So these plants, sorry, just had to pause the video there. Somebody was at the door. Yeah, so you can see how strong and healthy the roots are on these hyacinth beans. So definitely ready to be repotted on. And what I'm doing is literally just tipping them out of the pot. So if I've got my pot here ready, get some compost. Bit difficult to do it one-handed, but you get the idea. So I fill it up about halfway, and then better to do it with two hands, but squeeze the sides, and then I'm not planting two in a pot, so what I'll do is very gently sort of prise them down the middle, where try not to break the roots. Sometimes they can be very intertwined, which but if they've got enough roots in there, if you break one or two, they will survive. You know, they're not going to die if you've broken a couple of roots off. So separated, look at the roots on that, very healthy. So I'll just pop that in there for the time being, but then I'll show you. So make a little bit of a hole, a little bit of a well, plant in there. You don't need to add fertilizer to beans. Beans are what they call nitrogen fixers. Their leaves take nitrogen, so a lot of these feeds that like Miracle Grow etc have got high nitrogen in them, so you don't need to feed these high nitrogen feed because they capture nitrogen from the air and they store it in their roots. Their roots actually are what they call nitrogen fixers. So unless the plant is very unhealthy looking, it's got like its leaves are turning yellow, then maybe give it a weak solution of nitrogen feed. But if you're using a decent compost, you know, well balanced mix, then you shouldn't really need to feed hyacinth beans or any particular type of beans. You know, some people do, but what will happen is, in order to get the fruit of these, you want them to be more less leafy and more flowers. So later, as they grow a bit bigger, you can start giving them potassium, like Tomerite. But don't give them too much of the Miracle Grow type of compost or high nitrogen, because you'll get lots of leaves, nice big leaves, but you won't get any flowers and you won't get any beans. So that's my tip for the hyacinth beans and the bottle gourds. So what I've done is I've used teaspoon. I go right down to the bottom like a little spade and lift. See, it's a bit easier to do it with when you've got two hands. I'm holding this camera phone. There, you've got a nice healthy root on that. It's got a new leaf popping out. And so once you've got your plant out in the soil or in your pot, add a little bit more compost. Now these are vining plants, so at some stage you will need to add a stick, like a pea stick, for support. Now you might be thinking, why have you got so many bottle gourds? Because these are not the only ones I've got. I've got more. I've got at least 10 more somewhere else that are already planted out individually in pots. Well, around about April, May, in the Bangladeshi community especially, they like to buy these type of plants because not everybody's got seeds to grow them themselves. Sometimes people have tried growing them from seed and they've not had success, and so they still want to grow these plants. So I grow an excess amount and I do sell them. Usually there is what they call a mela, a fair, which is held around in April. So this year, because of Ramadan will fall in March through to April. I think at the end of April, when we Muslim month of Ramadan fasting ends with a celebration called Eid, and after Eid there's usually sort of parties and events, and hopefully there'll be a fair somewhere. If not, I'll be selling these from my home. Usually have them out on the front driveway, and people, you know, and people on WhatsApp or on Facebook groups message me asking if I've got plants for sale. So they're not all for me. Probably keep about 3 for myself, and the rest will be, you know, sold on. So there we have it. I'll update with more videos as these plants progress and get bigger in size. So any comments, any questions, add them in the comment box below. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.